My name's Eric. I get to introduce you to your final session before you go off to your resort activities, whether you're taking a hike or taking a nap, whatever that may be. Raise your hand if this is your first TCE. Great, it's mine too. So I had to ask a lot of questions about how this session is supposed to work. These are the lightning sessions. You get good news and bad news. The bad news is it's still 30 minutes. The good news is you get 3 sessions for the price of 1. So you will have 3 sessions presented to you, each 10 minutes within that block. And as I mentioned, my name is Eric. I lead our data science and insights team. We are the team that's involved with helping your data drive better decisions. And we use data from our platform, from outside our platform, and all throughout the ecosystems that we've been talking about, and using new technologies to develop decision-making capabilities from that data. And when we think about analytics, we try to find commonalities. And if you want to think very, very, very basically, a marketing action tends to have 3 elements: a before, a during, and an after. There's always something happening before, during, and after. And typically, our analytics energy has been focused on the after. And that makes a lot of sense in a world where analytics is quote-unquote expensive. We need to focus on ROI and KPIs, and those are always going to be important. But new innovations such as AI, because I have to say it, as well as many other things, have enabled us to put analytics firepower behind a lot more than just what happens at the end. So I want to ask the question, what happens here? What happens in those spaces while we're in the middle of acting, or even before we ever start thinking of acting? And as I think about time travel, I can only think about my mentor and yours, Mr. Doc Brown.
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
I was tempted to wear my sunglasses the whole presentation. I didn't think that would pull off very well. But let's talk about where we can focus our analytics energy and firepower earlier than just the end. Let's talk about what things happen during. And we can take an example from a large global software company that we work with, where we empower their marketing hub. Now, this has the usual things where assets are downloaded, customized, and it's retrieved in many different languages and many different formats. And we can dive a little deeper. We can actually build some healthy, friendly competition between the regions to enable them to drive their partners to enable this partner marketing hub and actually be active upon it. And then we can drive ourselves a little bit deeper. We can look at specific users, and we were actually able to find that quite a few users were downloading assets in languages that are not native to their home country. So we noticed that we are actually seeing a behavior of like marketing coordinators that are pulling together marketing assets in multiple languages at once. And that can inform how we better drive the user experience for those kinds of users and even differentiate it from other kinds of users. We can also take a look at this large automotive service company and looking at what can we know about the email campaigns that we send out. I mean, ideally, you would get an offer for your automotive service at the time you're ready to service your car. But of course, none of us look at that window sticker, myself included. So we don't know particularly when they're ready to. But what can we know? Well, we know the make, the model, the year of the vehicle. So we actually developed an algorithm that takes a look at OEM recommended service dates, but also when they last visited, and also what was the mileage on that vehicle when they visited us last. So that can optimize when we send that email at the exact right time. Then we can measure how successful we were against the control of just using a random target. But let's move even further back. Let's talk about what we can do before we ever get started with a marketing action. We can talk about how we're going to plan a co-op program, and in this client case, this is a national manufacturing for building products company. We saw that they wanted to transition from a cashback model to more of a co-op model. So we actually built out a stratified forecast of where their dealers might fit into different models based on worst case, best case, midline scenarios, and other scenarios we're able to develop. In fact, we can develop as many scenarios as we need because the firepower is no longer the hindrance there. And we're able to actually forecast which dealers will go into which bucket. And then we can tell this client what is the optimum balance of cashback versus co-op, and even how to potentially transition to a full co-op program should they want to. We can also take a look at this example for a large national furniture manufacturing company. In this case, we were looking at what they call their free design services. That's where you have the consultant come to your house and go to a specific room, and they tell you what you ought to have for that specific room. We looked at over 6 years of transactions. That's over 500,000 orders. And we were able to distill a number of different variables and insights. First off, there's dramatic change that occurred during COVID. But the change was really what's behind the change. It wasn't just revenue going up or numbers going down, but particularly we noticed that across the lifetime of the data we were evaluating, we saw some customers that had ordered 15 products or less, what I'd call regular users. Then we saw another strata of users that had ordered 51 plus products or more during that same 6-year time window. And if you'll notice, the regular customers, they go down in number of customers, but the revenue stays the same, people paying more for less. But if you look at the heavy hitters, as we've called them, the ones buying 51 plus items, surely they must have multiple Airbnbs, be interior designers or something. We're seeing that they not only increase in revenue, but also increase in number. In fact, this group of heavy hitters represents about 10,000 customers, and they're nearly the same total revenue as the 35,000 customers in the regular category. So why market to them the same way you market to the others? Go after your whales in a completely different way. We were also able to find that when you do this free design services, you tend to do the thing that I never do when I go in a furniture store. You accept all the extra stuff. So you tend to accept the cleaning kit, the repair kit, the extended warranty, the after-service visit, I don't know, the tchotchkes as well. I never ask for those things because I know they're going to tack on the extra, and they feel like they just go to the bottom line. Well, they do. They go to the company's bottom line quite effectively. And what we noticed is that customers that receive a free design service counseling are actually more likely to just sign off on the whole bill. So that includes a number of after treatments, as you see there, and that goes directly to the bottom line of their margin. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to think more like a time traveler, even though you're not with data science in your title, or maybe you are, but you have that kind of power. In fact, I would remind you first, you are a scientist. Marketing is more and more an activity of science. And so you can approach that with a hypothesis. You want to say, if I'm going to take a certain action, what do I believe that action will accomplish? Can I define that action in your usual SMART goal fashion? Timely, measurable, etc. Can we be clear in a learning agenda that we know what we're testing with this hypothesis, and we know what we're going to do if we prove it or disprove it? Then you really can predict some of the future. You need to ask yourself, what can my data tell me right now? Not after I get done with all the marketing actions, but what do I know now? Because there's lots of opportunities to analyze that data in ways that used to be expensive and complex that are now no longer so. And finally, you are a proactive powerhouse. You don't need to be in a reactive stance when it comes to your marketing. You can engage your marketing actions by knowing ahead of time what you're going to do if your hypothesis is proven true or false. And consultants like my group can help you sort that out and figure out what those plans should be. In fact, we love it when a hypothesis is proven or disproven because we get the chance to have new learning under our belt, and we know more collectively to influence that next marketing action. Every hypothesis answered is a new opportunity to learn. So I'm going to hand off from there. It's that fast, I promise. I'm going to hand off from there to my colleagues, George and Stacy, to talk about AI in motion.